To understand what happened to Becky Watts, you first need to understand who she was. Not the headlines. Not the case file. The girl. Becky was born on the 3rd of June, 1998, to Darren Watts and Tanya. Her parents had separated before she even arrived. Her earliest years were spent with her mother, but it was not a stable home. Concerns about neglect led to Becky and her brother Dan being taken into care. It was their father Darren who fought to get them back. And he did. Under his roof, Becky blossomed. She was described by those closest to her as burly and feisty, with a wicked sense of humor that came alive when she felt safe. At school, she was the opposite. Quiet, shy, almost invisible, but her teachers saw past it. They said she was incredibly caring, deeply kind, and had a heart bigger than she ever let on. She kept a small circle of friends. Tight, loyal, the kind of friendships built on trust and laughter. They adored her. She adored them right back. Then Darren met a woman called Angie. Angie had a son. His name was Nathan Matthews. Nathan was 10 years older than Becky. He had known her since she was just 2 years old. He did not live in the family home, instead staying nearby with his grandmother, but he visited often. His relationship with Darren was strained from the start. Nathan did not like anyone interfering with the bond he had with his mother. He tolerated the blended family, but that was about as far as it went. In 2013, Darren and Angie married. Nathan served as best man. Becky stood as a bridesmaid. So did Nathan's girlfriend, a young woman named Shauna Hoare. From the outside, it looked like a family coming together. But beneath the surface, there were cracks that nobody wanted to look at too closely. When Nathan was 19, he arrived at the family home with 4 young girls in the back of his car. Not one of them appeared to be older than 12. Darren took one look and refused to let them inside. He told Nathan to take every single one of them home. Immediately, when Becky developed an eating disorder in her teens, growing weaker, fainting, struggling to function, Nathan dismissed the entire thing. He called it attention-seeking. He showed no concern whatsoever. And then in 2008, when Nathan was 21 years old, he introduced the family to his new girlfriend, Shauna Hoare. He told everyone she was 19. She was not. She was 15. Darren saw through the lie instantly and told Nathan to take her home. But Nathan and Shauna stayed together. They went on to have a daughter. Darren later admitted there was something about Shauna he could never quite put his finger on. Something he could not name. Something that sat just below the surface. Less than 2 years after that wedding day, the day Nathan stood beside Darren as best man and Becky smiled in her bridesmaid dress, he would become the person responsible for ending her life. And what came after would be something that even the most experienced officers in Bristol had never encountered before. The search for Becky Watts had now stretched beyond a week. 9 days. No sighting. No phone signal. No trace of her anywhere. And the pressure was building. On Wednesday, the 25th of February, Becky's family was asked to leave the home so a full search could be carried out. Officers went through every room. They found nothing. 6 separate teams were deployed to different locations across Bristol. Woodland areas were combed on foot. 3 separate properties were searched. A helicopter swept low across the rooftops. The nature reserve at Troopers Hill was checked. A nearby lake was searched. All of it came back empty. The community had not given up. Not even close. Volunteers arrived in waves, scouring parklands and streets. Posters were pinned to every surface. The hashtag Find Becky was everywhere. But the investigating team knew that the answer was not going to come from a search party. It was going to come from the people closest to Becky. They needed to talk to those who had last seen her and build a picture of her final known movements. They started with Becky's stepmother, Angie. She told them that Shauna had heard the door go and assumed Becky had left. Simple enough. But the police needed to speak directly to the last 2 people confirmed to have been in the house with Becky on the morning she disappeared. Nathan Matthews and Shauna Hoare. They were difficult to reach at first. Hard to pin down. Eventually, both agreed to come in. Shauna spoke first. She told officers they had arrived at the house around 11 that morning. She heard music coming from upstairs, which she assumed was Becky. She went out to the garden for a cigarette and took her daughter to feed the rabbit. When she came back inside, she heard the front door slam. Stomping down the stairs, she said, like Becky had left in one of her moods. Nathan told the same story. Almost word for word. The same door slam. The same assumption. The same shrug. And that was the problem. Detective Chief Inspector Richard Acone knew something was wrong. When two people experience the same event independently, their accounts are almost never identical. Memories shift. Details get mixed up. Timings differ. It is human nature to remember things slightly differently. Nathan and Shauna's stories did not differ. At all. They lined up with a precision that felt rehearsed. Practiced. Agreed upon in advance. There was something else too. Shauna appeared oddly upbeat during her interview. Giggly even. Nathan came across as flat. Unconcerned. Neither one of them looked like a person who was worried about a missing 16-year-old girl. The officers could feel it. Something was deeply wrong here. But feeling it and proving it were two very different things. Then the forensics team went back inside Becky's house. Back to her bedroom. And on the door frame, barely visible to the naked eye, they found something. Faint spots of blood. And pressed into that blood, a fingerprint. It belonged to Nathan Matthews. The same man who had sat across from detectives just days earlier and told them he had no idea where Becky was. The blood was sent for testing. Officers held their breath. And when the results came back, the final thread of doubt snapped clean in half. The blood on that door frame belonged to Becky. Saturday, the 28th of February, 2015. Officers arrive at a house in Cotton Mill Lane, Bristol. Nathan Matthews and Shauna Hoare are placed under arrest on suspicion of kidnap. Nathan is handcuffed at the scene. The pretending is over. A forensics team enters the home they shared. The house is cluttered beyond belief. Every room overflowing with mess. Clothes piled high. Items scattered across every surface. It was chaos from wall to wall. But one part of that house did not match. The bathtub. It was spotless. Gleaming. Scrubbed until it practically shone. In a home drowning in disorder, that bathtub stood out like a spotlight in the dark. The officers stared at it. And they knew. The search of the property continued. And buried among the clutter, two small pieces of paper changed everything. Receipts. From the hardware store B&Q. Dated Friday the 20th of February. The same day Becky had been reported missing to police. The items purchased included an electric circular saw, goggles, gloves, a mask. CCTV footage from the store confirmed who had made the purchase. Nathan Matthews. Browsing the aisles calmly while the rest of Bristol was out searching for his stepsister. Let that sit for a moment. Nathan and Shauna were rearrested. This time on suspicion of something far worse. This was now a murder investigation. Police had the unbearable task of delivering this news to Becky's family. Her father, Darren, said his world began to fold in on itself. Flowers were placed near the family home. The doors of St. Ambrose Church were opened for mourners to light candles. People came in silence and left in tears. During further interviews, officers held back everything they had found. They did not mention the bathtub. They did not mention the receipts. They wanted Nathan and Shauna guessing. Then on Tuesday the 3rd of March at 10:26 in the evening, Nathan's lawyer read a prepared statement to the room. Nathan Matthews sat in his chair and stuck his fingers into his ears. He refused to listen to his own words being spoken aloud. The statement confirmed what investigators had feared. Nathan admitted that on the morning of the 19th of February he had gone to the house, carrying a bag containing a stun device, handcuffs, tape, and a mask. He claimed he wanted to frighten Becky. To teach her a lesson, he said. He said he believed she was selfish and that her behavior toward his mother was putting her health at risk. During the encounter his mask came off. Becky saw his face. He said he panicked. And then he took her life. What followed was laid out in a cold and methodical timeline. He had reversed the car into the driveway that morning with the boot facing the front door. Becky's last text was sent at 11:03. By the time Angie returned at 12:45, it was already over. Nathan and Shauna sat in the house with the family and acted as though nothing had happened. Becky's boyfriend arrived at 5. Shauna answered the door and pretended to check if Becky was in her room. At 7 that evening, the pair drove home. Her body had been in the boot of that car the entire time. That same night, they ordered a pizza and Chinese food. The following day, Nathan purchased drain cleaner, then returned to B&Q for the saw. Shauna texted him asking what time he finished work, followed by the letters LOL. At 4 that afternoon, the 999 call was made. Shauna then shared Darren's desperate Facebook post asking for help finding his daughter. By 9 that evening, the couple sat together and watched a video online called "Do You Want to Hide a Body?" Over the following days they went shopping. Bin bags, cling film, rubble sacks, bleach, tape, sponges, store after store. On the 23rd of February, police knocked on their front door. No one answered. That same afternoon, a phone belonging to the couple was used to search the words "Find Becky Watts." 2 minutes later, Shauna called her estranged mother, a woman she had not spoken to in 4 years. In the early hours of the 24th, CCTV captured a white van traveling from Cotton Mill Lane to a property in Barton Court, Barton Hill. That is where officers made the discovery. Inside a garden shed, packed into suitcases and bags, they found Becky. She had sustained more than 40 injuries. The pathology report confirmed she had fought back with everything she had. She was identified through DNA. The property belonged to Carl Demetrius and Jadine Parsons. They insisted they had no idea what was inside the packages Nathan asked them to store. They later pleaded guilty to assisting an offender. 2 other individuals were arrested and subsequently cleared. Shauna continued to deny any involvement. But investigators were not finished with her. Not even close. Deep inside one of her mobile phones, officers found messages she had deleted. Messages she believed were gone forever. They were not. The messages between Nathan and Shauna painted a picture that shattered every excuse they had offered. They had discussed abducting a young woman and hiding her in the attic. They had exchanged messages fixating on petite teenage girls. Internet searches recovered from their devices confirmed a shared and deeply disturbing pattern of interest in individuals around Becky's age. Then forensics delivered the final blow. Shauna's DNA was found on one of the bags containing Becky's remains. Her DNA was also found on one of the masks. On the 22nd of June, Shauna Hoare was charged with murder. Becky's funeral was held on the 17th of April at St. Ambrose Church. The service was open to the public. Mourners lined the streets in silence as her coffin was carried past on a horse-drawn carriage. A white dove was released into the sky as she was carried out. Her burial was private. Just family. Just those who had loved her most. On the 6th of October 2015, the trial began at Bristol Crown Court. And in that courtroom, Becky's family learned something they had never been told before. 2 years before she was taken from them, Becky had confided in a friend that Nathan had described to her, in detail, exactly how he planned to end her life. She never told her family. She carried that fear alone. Former colleagues from the Territorial Army took the stand and spoke about Nathan, a man with almost no friends, a man with a temper that would surface without warning, someone who would snap, someone who would throw things when frustrated. Prosecutor William Mosley QC addressed the jury directly. He told them this was a sexually motivated kidnap plot, that it arose from what he described as a shared unnatural interest in attractive teenage females. Shauna claimed on the stand that she was innocent, that she had been afraid of Nathan. The prosecution rejected this entirely, arguing that the pair had acted as a team from start to finish. Shauna's estranged mother also took the stand. She recalled how Shauna had suddenly appeared at her door after years of silence. She told the court she had made a joke at the time. "I know why you are here," she said. "You are running away from the police because you have kidnapped Becky." Nobody was laughing now. The jury retired. They did not need long. After just 3 hours, they returned. The verdict was unanimous. Nathan Matthews, guilty of murder, sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 33 years. He will be in his 60s before he is even considered for release. The judge noted that day may never come. Shauna Hoare, acquitted of murder, found guilty of manslaughter and kidnap, sentenced to 17 years. When Nathan was led from the courtroom, he did not look at his family. He stared at the floor. The judge, a man who had spent his career hearing the worst of what people are capable of, had tears in his eyes. Becky's mother Tanya released a statement. She said her beautiful, kind, funny, loving, loyal, feisty, creative daughter had been taken from her. That every day since had been a living nightmare. That this was not a horror movie. This was real. And her daughter was only 16. Darren lost 4 stone in the aftermath. He could not sleep. He could not eat. He could barely keep water down. But through all of it, his marriage to Angie survived. He said publicly, "If this does not break us up, then nothing is going to." In June of 2016, both Nathan and Shauna lost their appeals. A serious case review later concluded that Becky's death could not have been predicted, but it found that not enough attention had been paid to the wider dynamics of her family. It said her anxiety and her challenging behavior had been the result of ongoing intimidation from Nathan. Signs that were missed. Red flags that went unseen. Darren wrote a book about his daughter called Becky, The Heartbreaking Story of Becky Watts. The community continued to show its love. Balloon launches were held in her memory. A march through Bristol city center brought traffic to a standstill. Minutes of silence were observed at football matches. And in a quiet park not far from where she grew up, a baby apple tree was planted. A symbol of growth. A symbol of hope. Her family said it best. She was like a tornado, a hurricane, and a sunbeam all at once. She came into your life and made you feel alive. Becky Watts was 16 years old.